This day provides all of us with an opportunity to reflect on the road we have traveled as a nation since then. As a country, we have made much progress that we can be proud of. We have made gains in advancing women's rights, in broadening women's access to education, in the provision of health care and social support to women, and in improving their participation in the economy and decision-making. At the same time, we know that the lived reality for millions of South African women is very different to the promise that is contained in our Constitution. We know that millions of South African women still live in conditions of poverty and unemployment. They face discrimination and violence all the time. To give effect to our commitment to the upliftment of women, South Africa has joined Generation Equality, a global campaign to achieve gender equality by 2030. As part of this campaign, we are part of two action coalitions, one on economic justice and rights, and the other on gender-based violence and femicide. These action coalitions mobilize governments, civil society, and the private sector for collective action. They give us an opportunity to work with other world leaders to achieve real change in the lives of women across the globe. As we mark Women's Day this year, South Africa is in the grip of two pandemics, the coronavirus pandemic and the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. Ever more women and children are being abused and losing their lives at the hands of men. It cannot be that this Women's Day is drenched in the tears of families who have lost their sisters, their daughters and mothers to violence that is perpetrated by South African men. This cannot continue. We can no longer, as a nation, ignore the deafening cries of women and children for protection, for help, and for justice. It has been 11 months since I addressed a joint sitting of Parliament to announce an emergency response action plan to combat gender-based violence and femicide. Since then, we have taken concrete actions to provide greater support and care to survivors of gender-based violence. We have increased the number of shelters and care centers for survivors and improved the capacity of our police to deal with the crimes of gender-based violence. We have made important progress in reforming our laws to give greater protection to survivors of domestic and sexual violence. We now also have a national strategic plan, which, among other things, aims to promote women's economic inclusion. One of the most important ways to reduce the vulnerability of women to gender-based violence is to enable them to become financially independent. With the launch of Generation Equality and with the implementation of the National Strategic Plan, we have a unique opportunity to refashion our society and the lives of the women of our country. We have an opportunity to build a country in which women's rights to dignity, to security, to safety, and to protection is not negotiable. It requires bold and measurable actions by government, civil society, the private sector, and all actors for meaningful change. Today, we commit to a new social compact with the women of this country, informed by our collective commitment to gender equality.